media updates, live chats. We obviously would like you to continue joining us. This is the WorldView, the number one media company, where we explore everyone's perspectives on things that can broaden our old worldview. There's so much out there. We are partnering with Tshepo Matseba from Reputation First to discuss issues of our day. What's going on? South Africa, this country that churns news all the time. I think Tshepo, welcome again, of course.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Soli, for the opportunity. Great to be here.
There's so much to talk about. South Africa is heading towards an elective conference for the African National Congress, which is obviously still the Makulu bars of South African politics until it gets putted out, if it does, electorally, of course. They're going to choose their next president in December. It could be the current president. It could be somebody else. Everything is possible. We have elections in 2024. We have all sorts of narratives running around in South Africa. But the big story, I think, for me last week, was a court decision to say to the EFF, no, it's fine to continue singing that struggle song. What do you make of what happened last week?
Yeah, look, the struggle song itself, when you use the words that were used during the struggle by then Peter Mukaba and his team, they were saying kill the Boer and kill the farmer. We should not try to say something else right now. That's what it was. And that was the context of the discussion in a political rhetoric. Did they actually mean literally kill anyone? That much we don't know. The ANC and its various leaders have shared various positions on it to show and to try and demonstrate and rationalize that they did not actually in that context mean that one should physically kill somebody else, but instead that
Wait a minute, are you saying during apartheid they didn't really mean to kill the Boer, even during apartheid? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the message that they are telling us, that,
Okay.
that even in that context, the song didn't mean literally kill, but rather it was a protest against a movement and against a policy and a system. And we know that politically, rhetoric is used for various reasons to try and create an impression. But did people die under apartheid who were white during that era? Yes, absolutely. I mean, there were people who were bombed in restaurants. There were all sorts of killings that were happening in reaction to the apartheid system. And then the EFF comes and says, sings the same song, Duuli Bunu in isiZulu, which if you translate it literally, it actually means shoot the Boer. But then when asked during proceedings, Malema often repeats himself in saying he did not actually say Duula Ibunu, but instead he said kiss the Boer, kiss the farmer, and particularly in reference to a point where he was using the symbolic kill the Boer, kill the farmer.
How do you say
he said
kiss the farmer in Zulu? How do you say Dubula or kiss the farmer in Zulu? How do you say?
So there are two phrases. So Duuli Bunu is Duuli Bunu. You can't call it anything else. But when they got to this thing about the chant, where Peter used to say kill the Boer, kill the farmer, Julia switched it slightly to say kiss the Boer and kiss the farmer. But that kiss is often very subtle. You can't hear it. And then it becomes a matter of debate and public opinion. But where where AfriForum, I think, struggled was to argue that interpretation, because meaning in communication, meaning resides in people and not in words. And so they couldn't demonstrate convincingly beyond reasonable doubt that when you say, even though colloquially you are saying kiss the Boer and kiss the farmer, that the song itself was sang in a particular context and therefore could fuel another wave of violence against a specific group of people, in this instance, against white people. I think the bigger question, beyond just the words, the bigger question is whether this song or these songs are necessary at this point in time, and whether this song and this chant is helping us build at this point in time. And I doubt that it's helping to build because actually, if you were there as a youngster like myself under apartheid, when you hear these songs, and whenever the SABC used to do this thing every year around April to show us towards sometimes the ANC, I think, would drive these things towards elections. They'll play apartheid movies, and when you watch those movies, it does but only invoke emotion and pain and frustration and maybe anger. And so these songs, while they were relevant at a particular point in time, they may not necessarily yield positive energy, but instead negative energy. And you see it in our protests. Whenever we argue for service delivery or one or other issue, you see the pattern of South Africa's history coming through. In that we start off with tires, burning tires, we blockade roads, and then, of course, very quickly, rapid damage to the economy happens, rapid damage to infrastructure occurs, and people lose lives. And that's because, as a country, we have not healed up to that point where you could say that the majority of the population understands the dynamics of protest under a democratic dispensation, that it doesn't have to be violent, that we don't have to ban things, and that we don't have to damage our own infrastructure. In fact, think about talking about the song. Look at what happened in KwaZulu-Natal, where now residents have actually banned their own JoJo tanks that supplies them with water. And they turn around and say, please replace the JoJo tanks that we destroyed a week ago.
Yeah, but before we go to
the point where I'm going with it is that this song and this chants are not necessarily adding the value that people think they would. They may have significant and evoke significant emotions for those in the party and those in those parties in the EFF perhaps, and get politicians to chant and get members excited. But in the long run, they are actually damaging that building.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, we're playing with words here. We don't even need a judge to tell us. I mean, black people who are angry and who continue to blame white people for their plight, we're not going to say, let's go and kiss the white people. Come on. You got to be fools to say, oh, no, they're not saying kill, they're saying kiss. We know it's not kiss. And we know that it's not just about what Malema is saying. Many people who follow Malema say, kill the Boer. That's what they're saying. All right? So we can't say, oh, but they're just saying kiss this time. It's very nice. They're angry. Who wants to kiss somebody else when they're angry at them? Okay, we need to be realistic about these things. Would it be okay for whites used to go out and say, let's kill the blacks or let's kill the case? Would it be okay for them to do that? No, it won't be okay. So there's a lot of stuff that we justify that black people do in South Africa. We justify on the basis of apartheid, colonialism. It's nonsense. We need to stop this nonsense, Tshepo. Okay, and we've got to call it what it is. We don't need a judge to say it's wrong, to say let's go and kill so and so. There are many simple minds in South Africa. If you take mob psychology into consideration, you sing a song that says let's go and kill some people. People don't analyze these things. Angry people don't analyze these things. Because there's this narrative that white people, Afrikaans people are responsible for the plight of black people. It's not the ANC, it's not corruption. So when you say this to someone who's angry and hungry, let's go and kill white people. First of all, we don't want to talk about farm murders in South Africa. We don't want to talk about it. We say, no. There are murders in Soweto, in Khayelitsha, in Gugulethu, all over the place, so we can't talk about it. But when people say, let's talk about Black Lives Matter, they refuse others to say, but all lives matter. So it's hypocrisy, okay? When we talk about GBV, we have to allow a conversation about GBV. GBV happens, gender-based violence. When we talk about violence against children, we have to talk about it. We can't say, oh, but violence happens against everybody. But the minute you say, but violence is happening on farms, say, oh, no. It's not just the white people. Excuse me. I, Solim Wang, have seen horrific people of white farmers who've been killed, stabbed, raped, children murdered in their homes. Nobody's allowed to talk about that. They would rather say, no, but murders are all over the place. It's wrong. It's hypocrisy. And if you and I don't call it out for what it is, we're going to, when they look back and say, damn, we should have. Okay? Yep. It's wrong in post-apartheid South Africa to sing a song that justifies that cause, whether you mean it or not. That calls for the killing of another people, especially in such a diverse country. You calling for the killing of people, and you say, no, we're just saying kiss. It's wrong. And they justified this song, Tshepo, by saying it's a historical song because it's part of our history, Musala. But it's not, the kiss part was never sang during apartheid. I'm old enough to have been under apartheid. I don't remember anyone singing "Let's Kiss the Bull." So it's nonsense. It's rubbish. It's bullet brush to say, oh, it's a historic song. It's not a historic. The historic song is "Kill the Bull, Kill the Farmer." The question is it relevant in today's South Africa? Is it really?
Yeah, it's a very, you make important observation. Of course, as I said earlier in my remarks, I said perhaps in the context of that situation in the early 90s, in the late 80s, that this was relevant under apartheid. Whether Malema has said kiss or kill is a different debate altogether. I have not analyzed his speech thoroughly to know, but I do know what the song means in what it meant in that context. So the court unfortunately works on facts, and they bring in witnesses and they test witnesses. The AfriForum was allowed to cross-examine witnesses, including Julius Malema, and they have not won the case in this instance. I have not studied the judgment in detail to know what the court meant, but I do know that perception-wise, that song, Kiss or Kill the Boer, when you listen to it carefully, you get a sense of what was happening under apartheid. And of course, the people who are chanting, that's why if we encourage this kind of narrative in songs, even though they may be well intended, the harm is far greater. That's why our people only communicate through violence, because even when we say we are in a celebratory mode, we bring up songs that were used to fight an evil system. And I don't think that our democracy has degenerated to a point where it is now an evil system that you need to fight through violence. I think we have the forums, we have the courts, we have the justice system that's decent enough for us to argue things in court, to argue things in context, and not necessarily through the same means that we used or that were used during the apartheid regime.
Do you think AfriForum should appeal this ruling?
Look, it's very difficult for me to give an opinion on AfriForum's perhaps decision to appeal, but I would say it's an important debate. And anyone else should take the debate up if they're not happy with the outcome. If I were AfriForum, and I've strongly felt that this song is divisive and that it's putting the lives of white people at risk, I would certainly appeal on behalf of my constituency. And I guess also the EFF may feel differently, so may the ANC. But the important thing is, what does the song do for society in the context, or the chants? What are they doing for society in the context of a democratic society? And I think in the context of a democratic society, we should allow for different views, for different freedom of religion, freedom of speech, but we shouldn't necessarily encourage, even if it's not factual, but perception-wise, we shouldn't encourage or even hint at the possibility of encouraging violent behavior or hatred or hate speech. You know, AfriForum may have not been able to prove the hate speech component, but there are pockets. You know, my mother used to say, you must, as a child, and I'm now going a bit to religion, but as an example, but she used to say, you need to fear sin and anything that looks like sin. And so when it sounds wrong, it's probably wrong. And the song and the chants do evoke some emotions. Personally, as a young person who grew up under apartheid, I know that what those songs invoke in myself as an individual. You know, you get angry. Going back to the discussion about the farm killings, I mean, I totally agree with you that we shouldn't call certain murders less significant than others. Murder is murder, death is death, and pain is pain. We have the same blood. And the question is, can we say that when we talk about Black Lives Matter, for example, does that mean that the other races are insignificant? I think absolutely not. I think every movement has got its place. I personally don't even have a problem with Indian Lives Matters, Foreign Lives Matters, Black Lives Matter. The difference with Black people is because of the high levels of segregation that took place for centuries all over the world, is that when a movement such as Black Lives Matter and anti-apartheid movements type of setup will always continue, and they'll garner more publicity and coverage and interest. But that's because Black people have been segregated for many years. But that doesn't mean when you talk about protecting the lives of Black people that you are negating the lives of others who may be white, Indian, or colored, or foreign.
Well, just to stop you there, yeah, of course, we're together on that to a point. I think that when you are a people who have suffered pain, you would be expected to understand pain so much that you don't want to inflict the same pain on somebody else. You can't say we are black people. We've been, we've had all the bad deals we've had over the years. Therefore, every focus must just be on us. And on the matter of the kiss the bull or kill the bull song, and then I hear you saying, but if AfriForum feels it's not didn't get justice, that it must do it. It's up to it to decide. But I'm saying you and I can also talk as South Africans, right? We can talk as analysts, as reputational. We can say as human beings in South Africa, irrespective of the color of our skin. Is it okay for one group of people to sing about killing the other group of people? As South Africans, what does it do to the reputation of South Africa? What do foreigners looking into South Africa with no context of these songs, just listening to the words, see when one group of South Africans kill the other South Africans? Yeah.
Sorry, gentlemen, I thought I'd bring in Neil de Beer, who is a councillor in Cape Town and also the leader of the UIM. Neil, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Yes, indeed. Very good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah, if Neil, if you want to also deliver your opinions.
Yeah, just a minute before you do that. I'm still talking, please, and then I'll give you a chance if you let me. Okay. So the point I'm making, Tshepo, is that we need to be able to look at these things as human beings, not they are attacking your people. You're not happy with it. You decide whether you're going to appeal. Excuse me, from a human perspective, it's wrong. Okay. As a South African who love my country and who love all of the people of South Africa, it doesn't mean because you are not attacking people who look like me, it's okay. It's up to you to see whether you defend yours. All South Africans are my people. Afrikaans people, colored people, Indian people are my people. Do you understand what I'm saying? And as a reputational guy looking at South Africa, I say to myself, I don't want my country to project this image overseas because they're not attacking my people, meaning black people, because I don't think of things that way. Therefore, it's okay. It's up to them to sort out their. Come on, Tshepo, really.
No, absolutely not. So that's not what I'm saying. So my job right now is not to cast my own personal opinion, but the important thing is that we should look at what the judgment says, and if there is no evidence that this is hate speech, we can talk about the perception that the song is creating. Now, I don't sing the song. I also don't advocate for the song. I don't believe that actually. The point I wanted to reinforce is that I don't believe that we should maintain historical chants and songs that invoke emotion to a point where we cause damage to property, loss of life, that the wrong people get killed or anyone gets killed in the protest of how we address issues in South Africa or how we celebrate politically. But simultaneously, we ought to appreciate that we live in a democratic dispensation where freedom of speech is really protected in our constitution, even if especially where it includes politicians or civil society. But I do not personally support the view that we should drum up people towards behaving in a way that affects others negatively, whether they are white, black, or Indian. I fully agree with you there. But we would need to go and study the judgment and understand how did the court and the bench at the Equality Court, how did they arrive at their decision? And usually the court works with facts only. And if the facts only show that some of the chants were not necessarily directly saying kill a particular group of people, then we can't say here that we know for a fact, because the facts were supposed to be determined in court and they were determined otherwise. But should you and I encourage children, for example, to sing these songs, even though we know the underlying meaning meant kill, and all of a sudden we call it kiss? Should we allow that? Should we encourage it? Absolutely not. I don't believe that we should actually embrace historical items that are damaging in nature. We can keep them for record, but we shouldn't embrace and celebrate historical music or historical chants that gets people so emotionally charged that they cause damage to property and cause harm to other lives, irrespective of the skin color.
Okay, so we have a new guest from the United Independent Movement, Neil de Beer. Neil de Beer, please do you want to put your camera on because it's more lively so we can all see one another? I'd appreciate it if you can put your camera on and then share your view on this point.
Yeah, if you can give me just 2 minutes to move to a right positioning,
Okay.
I would like to do that. Yes, and a very good morning.
Hello.
Good morning to you too. And I see that actually there's a question. There's a point. Someone is saying question. The question
is, yeah.
Yeah.
The question is the legal definition of hate speech in South Africa, and the court has declared that a component of that must meet a call to action. So basically the call to action would be case, therefore it's harmless. Is that what it's saying? Is that what it means? Is that how you see it, Tshepo?
So what it's saying, from what I'm interpreting, the author is saying actually no. For this to qualify as a call to, as hate speech, you have to call people to action to perform an action of hatred. In this case, if you say I said kiss, not kill, therefore the call to action is completely different. Unfortunately, as you and I know, the courts work with evidence, and it's the evidence that we're struggling here with. The evidence presented in court was about kiss and not kill, but we know that the underlying message is very wrong and evil.
Neil, yeah, thanks, Tshepo. Neil, before you bring in, I just want to make this comment that, sometimes I know we don't always need the courts to tell us what is wrong and what is right. Then we struggle with the evidence, with the technicalities of what words mean. But we know that in the real context, people have gone to kill. In the real context, it's not just Malema who has to say kiss or kill the poor. People who follow him, who are angry, do say. There are lots of videos making the round on social media who say, even if he says kisses, because he knows that the cameras will be on him, there are many of his followers who sing kill because they know that's a real song that they want it to be seen. They're not going to sing just to please the Boer, as it were. So surely South Africans should get to a point where we say, this is wrong. It's not good for national unity. We don't need the courts to tell us. Let's just stop it. Okay, okay, Tshepo, you want to respond to that, and let's let Neil share his view.
Yeah, no, I was saying I totally agree with you. I think that's why I talk about in reputation management. We invest a lot of time in understanding perceptions, because while perceptions may not be facts and may not be proven, their effect may not be proven in court, but in the law of public opinion, in the law of what I call common sense, you may see that some of the songs really evoke a certain type of emotion, and you could take it and play it actually in a public rally or public protest in South Africa. If the minute people start charging those songs, they move them into specific action, and that's why I say, why as a society this type of things really push us to a point where as a society we do the things that happened under apartheid as if we are fighting against apartheid. But at the moment, we are fighting we may protest against the effects of apartheid. But if there was a service delivery protest in a specific area, it has largely nothing to do with apartheid regime. It may be that you are saying historically apartheid got us to where we are, but you can't fight a democratic system using violence that you used against apartheid. You may want to fight a democratic system using the relevant tools and instruments. And freedom of speech doesn't mean doesn't mean that I have the right to insult you or threaten your life or to threaten a group of people, either perceptually or factually.
Okay. Well, I've seen the comments from some of our viewers out there, but let's go to Neil first. Neil, you've listened to the discussion, I hope, from the beginning, or pretty much you have a sense of where we're going. What are your views on this?
I'm one of those weird white people. I'm an MK commander. I joined Umkhonto we Sizwe in 1988. We distributed our best-selling book 3 years ago called Undercover with Mandela Spies, which I was. I was previously a military officer in the apartheid government.
I read that book.
I was
it's very
a security
good.
Police officer in the apartheid government before the ANC undercover units turned me, and I joined. I was a card-carrying member of the African National Congress for 32 years. My last position held in state was senior advisor to the Ministry of Defense and Intelligence. Okay. I left 2 years ago because I found myself in conflict with a party that was born by people that I respected and gave my life for, by the way. I broke away from the ANC so that I could follow my own route because I wanted to change inside, but could not get the opportunity to form change inside. It was a very sad day to leave, but I had to, because I recognized that this was no longer the party of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. I'm a senior councillor now in Cape Town. My party is the UIM. We have council members in Durban and Johannesburg, and we'll be contesting 2024. I wanted to give you that background so that you know I know both sides.
Yeah.
I know the apartheid regime, and I clearly know the struggle regime. And I listen to both of you, and absolutely both of you are making relevant points. But here's my point of view. The white people of this country have now been in a new dispensation, and I speak of authority because I am from them, have had more than 28 years of a democracy. But the feeling that we get as white people, and now you got to understand that when I walk into a mall, when I walk into a coffee shop, when I walk into a shop, they don't know my history. Not everybody knows me, thank God. But I get the sense and the hearing from the Afrikaner, because ek is Afrikaans en ek is Afrikaans grootgemaak op 'n plaas. I was born on a farm. Both sides are using songs, and the youth are picking up these songs and do not actually know the history. I sang Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. I sang Umshiniwa, which both songs indicate the death or the killing of white farmers or farmers. That is the essence. Those songs sung in the spirit of getting together to forge a common denominatory, to forge a common unity against a common enemy, which at that stage was the apartheid government. But when we sing songs as white people called Delaray, sal jy die boere kom lei, it's also a song that is misconstrued. Because General Delaray never, ever led white Afrikaners to fight blacks. He was one of the biggest heroes within the then Boereoorlog that fought the English. But someone sang it and it became a slogan of the new white Afrikaner. So if you look at both and you look at how it is manipulated, I use the word manipulated in a very respectful sense. I know Julius Malema. I know him very well. You can imagine he grew up in front of us when he was at the Youth League, at the Thule House, and then he became an ANC. Julius Malema is not an idiot. Julius Malema is not a stupid human being. He uses this narcissistic methodology by firing weapons in the public, using slogans like kill the Boer, kill the farmer. He's not an idiot, this man. And in actual fact, AfriForum made the biggest mistake in their life to give this man a platform. And in my opinion, he annihilated AfriForum. And that was a fact that just after the court case, funny enough, the EFF went onto the stairs. There's a YouTube video where they then sang the full kill the Boer, kill the farmer. I agree with the gentleman, that the guest as well, that from our point of view, kill or kiss, we are not naive. We are not and cannot be stood as a nation that this is used to antagonize. Now, in conclusion, from my point of view, what this country does not need right now, and I'm saying this as a new politician that's not a politician. I entered politics because I wanted to change, and I found the only way to change is to enter government. It's sad, but it's true. And I can tell you the tenseness, the ferocity of the white Afrikaner in this country having enough, being suppressed, being murdered, a police service that is out of control, cannot control crowds when they are antagonized. And I always say the following: it takes one man with one gun, with one bullet, that can bring this country to the point where we will have racial warfare and it is not necessary in this country. And I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you how the people feel on the ground. Farm murders, it's a pity we had to use the word farm murders, because in my opinion, we then classified it in race. But it's real, as you say. People die. Now again, you get a naive, worked up narcissist that follows kill the Boer, kill the farmer, and what do we do? So I want to ask, let's stop this and find the middle way, because now what's going to happen is the white Afrikaner is going to sing the stem. He's going to start singing the stem in public. He's going to start waving the old South African flag. And then what do we, as a beautiful nation, a really true rainbow nation, what do we do then to pick up the pieces? That's my point of view.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. Thank you. Tshepo, somebody you have the joking atheist just loves your contribution there. Keep going. Look, I just want to say this. Okay, we are three South African men here. Two of them happen to be black. I think I'm blacker than Tshepo. But I cannot say I'm speaking for black people. Tshepo cannot claim to speak for black people. You cannot claim to speak for white people, because you say white people, black people, Indian people, we are a very, very heterogeneous lot. You know, it's easy to say all white people will do this, or black people. It's nonsense. We all know that it's nonsense. Okay, but of course you are sharing a sentiment that is shared by people. Each one of us is sharing a sentiment that some people will agree with or not agree with. All right. My sense is that not everything can be legislated upon. You cannot legislate on human feelings. You cannot say because something is technically okay to do it, you know, because it's wrong. We need to have a country, in my view, of course, where wrong is wrong. I mean, if you look at the Constitution, where we come from a really painful past, not just for black people, the Africans and the history with the English before, and then the black people, obviously through colonialism, apartheid, and all that. And you can hear the story of the Indian people, the colored people who are still saying today, we were not white enough during apartheid, we are not black enough. I live in Cape Town. Actually, my home is in Cape Town. I'm not in Cape Town right now. And I know black, white, colored people who lost jobs, or who are unemployed, or who are struggling to find jobs, who say it's because of these black people coming from the Eastern Cape who are taking our jobs. We don't have jobs, not because we don't have the skills to do the jobs, or who say, well, we need to look at the provincial figures in terms of BEE, you know, empowerment. More colors should remain at the top, like they were at the top of the feeding trough, if you want, during apartheid. But we need to get to a point where we say, as South Africans, is there a way to hold hands, understanding the pain of the past and understanding the fragilities that remain? Especially race is a big thing for South Africans. If you say there's a racist in a room filled with South Africans, there'll probably be a stampede, right? And it's easy for people to sing a song that means no harm, that could mean harm. And this time, I don't see any harm in this time. It's part of our national anthem. People sing it all the time. I don't feel offended by it. But the African is the Africa. We are part of a negotiated settlement. We said, guys, let's put our arms down and let's agree to disagree. That's why, and that's how this democracy of ours was born. Not everyone, not anyone, nobody actually who participated in those multi-party negotiations ended up walking away with everything they wanted. So is there a way to create? We need a leader. I'm a brand guy, a brand management guy. Countries are brands for me. South Africa is a destination brand. All brands have got leaders, need to have leaders that are credible. Under Mandela, we had a leader, in my view, of course, who was able to reach out to go and have coffee with Betsy Road, to meet with Ghana, to meet with everybody, to say, guys, come on, we all belong to the same family. I do not believe that we've had such a leader for brand South Africa since then. And I think that's what we're lacking. So now we seem rudderless. Everybody's doing their own thing. Malema, I totally agree with you. Malema is not a fool. He's a smart political manipulator. But some of the things he say in order to gain his political points are not good for the country. Is it okay, Tshepo?
Yeah, look, I mean, we can't say that everything that Malema says is 100% okay. I think that would be risky, but would also be insulting the kind of work that went into building our democracy. So I think there's a fundamental point that as a politician, sometimes he says things that are not necessarily good for our democracy. In fact, over time, when you observe young Julius from the ANC Youth League to Julius Malema today, he has become better than worse off. The younger Julius used to say things that when you look and you reflect on those things, you were actually shocked. From the events around the young journalist, BBC journalist, that he insulted, and he may not say it was not an insult, but that he insulted when he was at Lutuli House at a press conference, that and many other rants that Malema makes can get worrying. But he also says positive things. Especially when you look at things such as the position that the EFF has taken around the land issue and the consistency around that issue. If you go and reflect on his speech at Winnie Madikizela Mandela's funeral, profound words that were coming out of there, reminding the ANC members who were there, senior ANC leaders who were at the funeral, about the betrayal that they've contributed towards many poor and African Black people. It reminded people a lot about the effects of corruption and the smiles that we were having in that room or in that stadium, at Orlando Stadium, I think it was.
And so VBS, but did you say anything about VBS?
We'll deal with VBS maybe at a separate discussion. It's interesting,
Okay.
the VBS issue, and I guess VBS is a far more complex one. We need time on it because in saying all these things, for example, if you reflect on the VBS one, there was a point where someone was asking him about a specific credit card that was used at different hotels, at different events of the EFF, and he would say, "Oh, yes, I was present at the event, but that doesn't mean that I'm the one who swiped the card. Somebody else rather comes to an event and he swipes his own card. It can't be my own problem." So he, of course, as a politician, much like former President Jacob Zuma, much like former President Thabo Mbeki, and much like Tony Leon, as a politician, they know what to say, when to say it. In fact, South Africa has many people similar to Malema, even though we may not want to admit it, and they may not necessarily want to admit it. If you look at Helen Zille's speech and commentary, and I know we're not talking about her right now, but let's bring in more balance. When she talks about colonialism with such a level of passion and its contribution to the lives of poor Blacks and poor Africa and poor South Africa and its infrastructure, and that we should be grateful actually for the contribution of colonialism in our country. You see how she says it with passion and how she defends it, even if at a point it's actually defenseless. When you look at Steenhuisen and the posters that were in KwaZulu-Natal during the unrest in July, and how he was defending those posters until somebody said, but it's wrong. And then he still believed that these were wrong. So I think as a political system, much like in the US, you saw how the former President Donald Trump speaks to people and how he addressed the media. So in the context of our politics globally, we are going to have good leaders, bad leaders, and average leaders. And in politics, I have learned not to trust politicians, no matter how noble they may be, because they're the most consistent people in the world of leadership. Because one minute they say one thing, and when you are really excited and feel that you are protected and this is an awesome environment, and then they switch to something awful, something disrespectful. And the lesson here is for our political leaders, of at least what this case has brought forward, is the need for a more respectful and a more in our robust protests and engagements, that we become cautious as leaders, not to highlight hate speech as an insignificant issue, that we should actually pay attention to the things we say, so that we don't drive up hate speech and thereby drive people to negative behavior. And this is to do with this song. And as Neil said earlier, some parts of the stem, the old stem, which you often see at different rugby games, where whenever the stem is played, the volume actually turns up and people get excited. But all along they were silent and not singing. And so that in itself can drive absolutely negative behavior in our country. And I think politically, for our leaders at least, we require and we have the right to at least require some degree of decorum so that we can have excitement, but do so responsibly.
Okay, Tshepo, on the matter of the stem, I know black people who don't sing the Afrikaans part of the stem. So because black people, because of the sheer numbers, when they sing Nkosi Sikelel' Morena Boloka Sechaba, so it's loud. They keep quiet when it goes to the stem part. I know people who do that even today. So obviously, people who grew up singing the Afrikaans part will raise their voices because some of them can't sing. As you said, let's balance the equation here. Okay, black people sing with passion when they sing Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, and they sing Morena Boloka Africa, whatever. And then Afrikaans people sing the other side louder because that's how. So we need to find a way to say, maybe do we need this chick-shack of a national anthem, or should we come up with something else? And also, I don't know. But then it's going to be, what language is it going to be? Is it just instrumental? It's a very important discussion, interesting discussion. But the question
while you're there,
okay, let's go ahead.
While you're still there, so the EFF in Parliament, they deliberately don't stand up when you sing the stem. When that part of the song, they don't stand, and that's their statement to say that they don't recognize the stem. They've said it openly. In the context of Loftus Versfeld, where I go to watch my favorite team, the Blue Bulls, you will see that the message that is being sent is not because they don't sing or understand Morena Boloka Sechaba Sahiso. In fact, the guy next to me sings better than myself. He has a voice better than mine, modulation. He's a quality singer, but he deliberately, as a message, and we can't. Again, I agree with you. Let's not sugarcoat. I think not everyone does it, but when you see it happening at Loftus Versfeld, similarly to what you see at some EFF events when the national anthem is being played or sung, people actually rise and show respect at the intervals that they're interested in. Is it right? Is it wrong? I would argue that it's wrong in the sense that this, even though you may not have been part of the population that signed an agreement to have this specific national anthem, otherwise we would never have an anthem, but it is our national anthem and we should embrace it because we look laughable to the world when we do this kind of theatrics around our own assets. You can choose to, if you want to change the structure, like my friend Neil, form a political movement, and maybe you can help us change these things in years to come. But for now, this is our national anthem and we should embrace it.
Okay, Neil, before you come in, you are next. But I just want to, I've seen a number of comments from our viewers there, and both of you would, if you could please talk to this point. Neil first and Tshepo. People are saying, we white people don't feel that we belong anymore. We are being excluded. And somebody else said, we talk of South Africa as if there are only two races, the blacks and the whites. Why? Why do we exclude the others? And I've seen colored people also saying, yeah, white people, black people. But we also, when we talk about racism, I know that there are racists in all groups. I know blacks who hate whites, who hate colored. I know colored people who can't stand black people, who say nasty things about them. I know people who are Indian who say nasty things about black people. So racism is so ingrained in many South African communities. We like to talk about white racism over black, maybe because of colonialism and apartheid. But we also seem to say now it's our turn to eat, generally speaking, we the blacks. You guys don't belong. White children get excluded in some places because they're white, or sometimes say, yeah, but your people imposed apartheid in South Africa. So we feel, people feel that there's no future for them, for their children in South Africa. A lot of people will say, as soon as my child finishes matric, I'm getting them out of there, because they're going to struggle anymore. Even if a child who's born 15, 20 years ago starts a business, if they happen to be white, they must appoint a black CEO, they must give some of their business to black people. I think it's nonsense. I think we need to get to a point where we say, okay, BEE has done its job, we've mismanaged it, but it's not the tool to create harmony in South Africa going forward. Maybe we should have a conversation about BEE. Do we reform it? Do we ditch it? What does it mean really to continuously forever say black people on top, everybody else on the bottom? Okay, Neil, you go first. Tshepo, you go after, please.
Solly, I think Tshepo is very right when he says, there are some times when politicians say things and get it wrong for brand South Africa, Solly, as you say, where people overseas must be going, what are they saying? How can they do that? And then on the other hand, you get spurts of times when people do speak sense. I think on the VBS matter, I just want to say that frequently at Winnie Mandela's funeral where I was, Julius was asking for a sign. And, maybe he should have asked for a longer sign. But that VBS matter will come up. It has to come up because it's the law. And if it's not, then again, we're flouting it. I want to quickly tell you there's two forms of politics for me in South Africa. There's the diplomacy part, and there's the trash talk. The diplomatic side is when you go out there and you be a real leader, you go to openings of parliament, you stand at SONA, you promise in 100 days a miracle of a plan, and then the ex-president of your own party tells you while you're at a gala dinner, you've done nothing. That's probably non-diplomatic, but it's true. We've got to face it. I can be very diplomatic, but I'm known in this country as a very hard talker, as a straight talker, as a person that addresses, not trash talk, Solly. In other words, in this country, trash talk, there's one easy button. You know your wife, if you've cheated on her, and I haven't, but I've known of people that are guilty, she will tell you she's forgiven you. But every once or 2 months, she will remind you cheated on her. So you're never forgiven.
You're going to be in trouble.
That is, can I call it red dot? What is South Africa's red dot? Racism. If any diplomatic row, if any party political discussion, if any common denominatory debate happens, and you end up between a black and a white guy, a DA or an ANC, a EFF or a DA, or a Freedom Front Plus, the last bit of authority, that last little bit of crumbs in the bowl, that last swipe of in your bowl, you're racist. Now, when you say to a person in this country that's white, racist. Now I met a racist. He didn't join the AWB because he said they're too liberal. That's how far right this guy was. This guy said to me at a bridal one day, and he had solely no clue who I am. He didn't know he's sitting in front of a guy that has a bit of a struggle credential. And I was sitting as a guest of a friend, and we were crying and a political religion, rugby, politics. That's what happens in an Afrikaans house. It's normal. Right. Trust me, at a braai where there's whites, it's those three. And politics came up. And in this thing, this man turned around, this 65-year-old man, Afrikaner Boer, and he turned around and he said to me, Neil, we are tired. Ons is moeg. We don't want to go on with the racist battle anymore. We just want to earn a living. I was dumbstruck. Because that's what people in this country, I think, the majority of people want in this country. They just want no crime. They want to stop corruption. They want to get capital back, Solly. They want to have a formulate of belief, and they want to protect a law, a constitution that allows this country to come back to the point where we were world-renowned, world-followed, world-loved.
Okay, before Tshepo comes on, Tshepo, just can you comment on the point of the flag? And it's on the screen as well over there. Not the flag, the anthem rather. Do you think that it was a mistake to put together a national anthem that tries to please everybody, but doesn't please everybody? Do you think we need a new national anthem that is more acceptable? I don't know what that would be. Or do you think we must just keep pushing this one down people's throats until everybody accepts that this is what we have?
I think.
But before you go, I want Neil to comment, and then you do take over after that. Okay. Just quickly, Neil, on the national anthem thing, do you think it's cool, or do we think? Please, just a brief one.
I love it. I was the manager of the Springbok under-21 rugby team that won a World Cup in Argentina, and that was a fully fledged, multiracial team. So.
Okay.
And I was part of that World Cup in Argentina. And when we won it, I wish the world, I wish our country could come into that circle, Stadion Malvinas in that country, where 32 of us stood, sang the national anthem in its full-fledged, no hidden agenda, nothing. And a guy with an old South African flag, listen to me, entered the circle. He was part of the crowd. And he ran onto the field and he wanted to join the circle. And the captain of the team, the senior members of that team, told him to step out the circle. Because right now, we don't want any interference of left or right. We wanted to have unity. I'm happy with the anthem.
Beautiful.
I'm very happy.
Okay, Tshepo?
Yeah, look, I mean, I take the points about the national anthem. Could we, in 1994 or just before 1994, in reaching out for those sunset clauses and trying to make means and stop the violence that was taking place and create a space for the democracy we have today, could we have stopped this national anthem and just really went for something completely new? Maybe some people may say yes and maybe not, but the specific national anthem has a combination of what you could at the time of the best of South Africa, what you could with the amount of words that you can have in one song. For that period of time, the leaders that time thought that it was the best thing to do. And I'm sure there was public participation at the time. I was much younger, but I'm sure in all these processes, there's some type, I hope, of public participation. And at some point, collectively at leaders, some people had to make decisions. Even though if I'm vendor speaking, I speak to vendor, I might say, well, you don't cater for me. If I speak isiNdebele, I may say that you're not catering for me, etc. And can we actually make everybody happy? I think if there's any biggest difficulty is the issue around language, culture, and diversity of languages. And then, of course, we're going to also have to debate which part is colored, which part is Indian, which part is black, which part is Sepedi, and which part is Afrikaans. The contention that I hear most of the time, even from the most unhappy members of our society about the song or the extremists, is probably around the word distem that they bring up from time to time. But when you are at South Africa's events,
you spend too much time with black people.
No, that's not so many.
I'm just choosing.
Come have a braai in Cape Town.
There are not so many of them actually at Loftus Versfeld, where I spend a lot of time. There's not so many black people there. But when you are at Loftus and you listen to the song and the national anthem being sang on a good day in South Africa, that song is encouraging. If you're at the World Cup and you heard the song just before that opening match, powerful, evokes positive emotion. So I think there's something great about the song. Should we invent an amapiano or hip hop version and things like that? I don't know that will be effective in the long run. Here's the point. The point is that economically speaking, and we can talk about BEE another day, but economically speaking, we are sitting at a position of privilege. If we call it that for this moment alone. If you think about poor people who are now protesting in different places and townships in South Africa, and unfortunately most of them are black and African, they will tell you that our debate about the correctness or incorrectness of that hate speech court case is completely irrelevant, and their pains and the violence that they spark when they protest is because they are speaking from a hungry position, and we are speaking from a position of slight comfort, perhaps with a little bit of aircon and maybe some electricity that works for today here at home in South Africa, where we don't necessarily have load shedding. So I think we need to also appreciate that all these things, all the difficulties that we're facing, especially by the poor, happen in the context, within the context of severe poverty, high unemployment, and difficulties. But there are some positives where I think we are turning the corner as a country, but politicians have the responsibility to not only embrace exciting the numbers of people with rhetoric, but also to speak truth to power and to be authentic in their conversations, so that we can actually move a little bit forward as a country. Going back to chant apartheid, songs that used to fight apartheid when we are no longer in apartheid is not necessarily a wise thing to do at this point. And I don't believe it will take us forward.
Tshepo, you've just said, I think we are turning the corner as a country. Can you unpack that for us? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, look, in the last, so firstly, unlike what is being said sometimes by ourselves in the media and our colleagues in the media, when I drive out of here where I live, no one is going to try to shoot me. I don't live in a place where, and many parts in South Africa are like
You're
this.
privileged. You're a
You can
privileged
go.
black person.
That's correct. That's correct. But even where I come from, in Amanskraal, north of Pretoria, you can actually go to the spaza shop without anyone stoning you the next hour or the next second. There are no men in the street walking around with machetes trying to kill everyone in every street corner of this country. There are difficulties. Crime is a major problem. But I think we're turning the corner. We are beginning to see positive things. We have made a dent in this quarter in terms of unemployment. There are more employed people now than there were in the previous quarter. I think it's a positive thing.
There are more people who were unemployed looking for jobs who have given up, Tshepo. You must count those people as well. So you can't just count what you see and not count what you don't see.
Of course. But I mean, we also need to say, is this glass half full or half empty? And I think as a country, we are not, we're not at where we should be. There's so much potential that we have. If we got rid of corruption, if we got rid of and we don't, the last thing we need right now is this investment in court cases that argue about whether this is this one and so on. I think the point was made, though, and politicians and leaders across the board, I think we have the responsibility to take a precautionary approach when we debate things such as hate speech, when we get our members excited, that we should be encouraging and inspirational. Barack Obama ran a successful campaign without insulting anyone. And I think we can actually do that as we run up towards December 2024, 22, for the ANC's elective conference. And as we run towards the 2024 elections, that we can campaign and talk to each other without insulting one another, without insulting or inciting violence, and without banning people and banning buildings. We can have conversations. And I know some of us are hungry at this point in time, and maybe it's up to the state and the leaders who are currently in the state to eliminate corruption and put more money in supporting young businesses so that we can have a lot more sustainable jobs going forward. And the future, at least, of our country is secured.
But must they put more money to support more small businesses, or must they work harder at creating policies and creating an environment for businesses to thrive? I mean, we can't rely on small businesses relying on politicians to put more money. I don't know where, because it always goes into the same places anyway, politically connected people. They should create an environment that is thriving for free enterprise to grow and create jobs and improve livelihoods in South Africa. We can't rely on the goodwill of men and women in politics to thrive as a country, really, Tshepo?
Well, it's difficult to change a policy or to influence policy without participating in the political system. I think let's appreciate that about our democracy and our constitution. And small businesses, I believe, are one of the key instruments that we can use to actually harness economic growth and create more jobs. When you spend a lot more on small businesses, you create a space. Can we trust politicians to do that? That's a different story. And that's why when we exercise our votes in 2024, we ought to do so with the economy in mind, with unemployment in mind, with healthcare and education in mind, and not necessarily just patronage.
Okay, guys, we're almost reaching the end, but it's not fair on Neil. Neil, you wanted to say something. Please make your comments. Tshepo will make his concluding remarks and I will close the show for today.
Yeah, just 3 points. I think one will argue that certain people in government have stolen the glass, Tshepo. It's not half full, it's not half empty, it's gone. They've just stolen it. When you have a country that I'm 53, I've lived a half a century in this country. I've seen change. I've seen huge changes in my lifetime. And you've had leaders, and I fully agree with Solly. Nelson Mandela was the last real statesman. He was the real man that could reach out to everybody. But I'll tell you what the problem is, and I think maybe Solly later, if we could do a program about what, in my opinion, happened in this country that did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the TRC. The TRC was exactly supposed to be Truth, Reconciliation Commission. And I'll tell you something, being part of that, we never got to reconciliation, Tshepo. This country never got to the R. We got the truth. A black lady in court heard how a white policeman murdered her son, where her son was killed, and how. A white lady heard and saw the bomber who put the bomb at the Wimpy and killed her daughter. In front of her, 2 people, 2 mothers. What was supposed to happen was there was supposed to be a knock on the door a month later, and a reconciliation was supposed to happen. It never happened. So there are issues in this country that are deeper than just race. We started systems, we never finished it, and that's a program solely on its own. Reconciliation, the real reconciliation in this country. But that's a matter for the other side. But it has got to do about this kill the Boer, kill the farmer.
60 seconds.
Tshepo, you agree. We cannot continue going into the past and bringing up ghosts of the past and learning it to the future, because how does a 16-year-old white boy in Pretoria know the letter K? How does he know the K word today? He knows the K word today because his parents are keeping it alive.
It's true.
So if we want to break from the bad, the past, everything must break. Kill the Boer, kill the farmer must go. The structuring of hatred against black people must go. And that is the only one solution, and that is I must die, hopefully of natural causes. My generation, 50, 60, 70, 80, we must leave the world. And the new generation must take over. And hopefully people like the EFF, people like AfriForum will stop bringing these things to the front and renew the old. And we could go into the new as the Republic of South Africa.
Somebody's referring to the TRC as having been a precedent to resolve massive political abuses through reality TV confessions. The Zondo Commission seems to be like that for me too. Another reality TV confessional. Tshepo,
but no,
I'm giving you 60 seconds to tell us. There's so much to talk about, gentlemen, but Tshepo, tell us 60 seconds, your closing remarks, and then we'll.
Look, I think we should appreciate the role that every leader in our society plays. Where sometimes, even when we're uncomfortable about their leadership style, we should also appreciate the value and contribution they make. But also, as individuals in society, we have the responsibility to vote and participate in our economic system and our political system. Ignoring it and hoping that being absent will change things is not going to help us at all. And so we have the responsibility to participate actively and deliberately in order to create a better society. A challenge, I think, for us as leaders and for all our leaders in the public sector, in the political spectrum, is to try and contribute in a meaningful way, in a way that builds, reminding us constantly about colonialism and apartheid. Unfortunately, doesn't contribute any positive towards job creation, towards alleviating poverty. It doesn't feed the poor. And we need developmental actions that really make a difference in people's lives, not just the political rhetoric and excitement. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I'm sorry for the little distraction. After this, I run to catch my train to leave where I am to go to another place. But anyway, thank you very much. These discussions, it's amazing because when you talk about one topic, it opens other discussions. Tshepo has said several times, that's a discussion for another day. He's correct. Neil, you've said the same thing. We will do it again. Both Tshepo is part of the family now. Neil, you'll come back. There's so much to talk about this. But we need to have unafraid, clear conversations. But we also need to be mindful that it's also about this country that has been so much fragilized, by political bickering, by greed, by high levels of impunity, by arrogance in politics, and by us trying to implement the same methods over and over again, expecting different outcomes. We need to ask as South Africans what happens in 2024. How do we get South Africans to work together? Because the things, we don't have a choice. We can be as angry as we want about stuff that happened in the past. We do not have a choice. We only have one country, South Africa, to save. And it can't be saved by just blacks or the colors or the Indians or the blacks or the Boer. All of us are destined to work together to make this country work. Let's have these conversations, but let's also try to influence those people in politics to wake up and stop pushing their own narratives just so that they remain in the game for another day, for another week, for another year, for another term. We need to save South Africa. So next year, we'll announce between today and next week what conversations we're going to have. Tshepo, I look forward to seeing you again. And of course, Neil, I hope that we'll get to the show again in the future. And those who are watching this show, if you've come this far, of course, it's because you love the conversations. Keep joining us, telling other people about the show, share, subscribe to the channel. This is Solimwe at WorldView. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you.